This is the download from Sounds Profitable, your daily source for the essential news in the business of podcasting. I'm Gavin Gaddis. Here's what you need to know for today, Wednesday, October 22nd. First up, Spotify, The Ringer, Netflix, and YouTube. With the recent announcement that select Spotify studios and The Ringer podcasts are set to be distributed on Netflix in early 2026, analyst Adam Bowie looks at the specifics of the deal. One detail not widely discussed is the fact full episodes of the podcast mentioned in the deal will be removed from YouTube and not have new episodes uploaded going forward. Bowie's estimation is that these podcasts involved in the deal likely command higher CPM, cost per thousand impressions, for their podcast audio ad space than the passive ad income they're making from YouTube. That, combined with Netflix likely paying a healthy sum per episode for each episode, makes The Ringer losing full episode YouTube ad revenue likely not much of a loss, if it's a loss at all, because the channels will continue to upload clips. On the other side of the deal, Netflix gets to quickly beef up their lean-back talk show content at a relatively low price. Spotify gets the prestige of their video content being living room TV accessible in a widely installed app, and Netflix gets a dearth of both content backlog and regularly updating evergreen shows, churning out new episodes. Next up, YouTube's dynamic brand insertions could unlock the upfront market for creators. Starting early next year, YouTube is going to pilot a new feature that will allow content creators to swap out normally baked-in sponsored content with a marker for dynamic brand insertions. Digiday's Tim Peterson proposes not only does this change how sponsored content segments will work in YouTube videos and how they'll be priced, it has big back catalog implications as well. Up until now, watching back catalog content from sizable YouTubers is basically stepping into a museum of long-dead promotional offers and brands. With dynamic brand insertions, YouTuber backlogs suddenly are as evergreen a promotional tool as a TV show or a podcast. That could mean in 2026, in addition to YouTube being sold on the general premise that advertising on one of the biggest video sites on the internet is probably a good idea, now creators can make bigger splashes at upfront events by selling their now available video libraries for new content deals. Speaking of Netflix, our next story, still watching 2025 report on streaming audiences. Netflix has a new report looking over the year's trends with streaming audiences, built from combining qualitative, quantitative, and first-party data analysis that specifically focused on Gen Z and millennial streaming viewers. Data that includes a sample size of 9,000 frequent streaming viewer survey respondents. Indie content is on an uptick, with 59% of respondents saying they plan to watch more shows and movies made by indie filmmakers. 72% of respondents say they like when brands advertise across a wide range of streaming content. That was across, not across. I refuse to cut that out. Including different genres and narratives. 42% of respondents say their perception of a brand improves when that brand runs ads that sponsors content they love. While these numbers are good, existing numbers for podcasting show the inherently creator-focused nature of the medium means audiences are a little bit more keyed into the idea of supporting a brand equals making more of their favorite podcast financially possible. Which is to say, it makes total sense why Netflix continues to have an interest in both producing their own podcasts and onboarding podcasts from abroad. Podcasting can engage audiences and get them to take that final step into actually watching something on Netflix instead of talking about it. And for the final top story, 11 podcast takeaways from South by Southwest Sydney. This year's edition of South by Southwest in Australia featured a day of podcast-focused content. Of the 11 main takeaways in this article, many of them are geared towards broadcast veterans in the audience thinking about getting into podcasting, including former broadcasters extolling the virtues of not having to worry about timed ad breaks or a clock ticking down until the next segment. Similarly, the niche nature of podcasting also means the idea of having competitor content is far different from fighting for your real estate on the FM dial. The average person is a fan of many things simultaneously. and podcasts can benefit from collaboration. For example, cross-pollinating fans in feed drops and hosts guesting on each other's podcasts. As for the rest of the news, the submission deadline for the Ambies has been extended through November 28th. You can submit at the Ambies website that I've linked today. The Mess Around, a New Girl rewatch podcast hosted by former stars Lamorne Morris and Hannah Simone, has announced a partnership with HeadGum that started this week. Media and entertainment group Global has announced plans to expand into video-first podcast brands, branded sports entertainment, and a suite of data-led tools to prove advertising effectiveness. Cumulus Media and Odyssey have announced the rebrand of Infinity Sports Network to Westwood One Sports, which will operate as a 24/7 sports network. The Podglomerate's Morgan Swift has a new blog listing out 11 working podcast critics. And for our final quick hit, Dear Media has signed reality TV star Kristen Cavallari to a multi-year 7-figure deal for her podcast, Let's Be Honest. As always, you can check out the links to everything I've talked about today by clicking the link in your show notes right now, which will take you to today's episode post on soundsprofitable.com. If you want any link from any episode I've done, you can go to soundsprofitable.com, mouse over to the download version, and click to your heart's content. You could also subscribe to the newsletter version of the download while you're there and get the next episode direct to your inbox. The download is written and produced by myself, Brian Barletta, and Tom Webster. For Sounds Profitable, I'm Gavin Gaddis. Download us again tomorrow.